Hi Year 2. Let's get learning. I hope you enjoyed the introduction video to Judaism. We're now going to be focusing in on a specific story from the Jewish religion. I'm going to share my screen with you now. Jonah and the Big Fish is the story that we're focusing on today, and hopefully you've already watched me reading you the story. If not, I'd recommend pausing the video, go back, watch and listen to the story. And all of the work we're going to be doing today is going to be reflecting back on caring for each other. The theme within our religion section today is caring for each other. So before we start on that, I want you to stop, pause and reflect and think about ways that you care for people that you live with or that you care for your friends. How can you care for somebody? Pause this video now. Welcome back. There's lots of different ways you can care for somebody. I'm just going to list a few now, and you can give yourselves a thumbs up if you've got any of the ways of caring that I have as well. So I think by caring we can share. So I might show that I care by sharing my lunch with somebody that has forgotten their lunch. I might show I care by giving somebody who looks a little bit sad maybe a hug, or saying to them, "Are you okay?" I might show that I care. There's so many ways to show that you care. You might want to show that you care by checking in on your elderly neighbours and making sure that they've got everything they need, especially during the snow that we had at the beginning of this week. You might want to show that you care by playing and reaching out to people that you either live with, or even just making contact with people that during the lockdown that you've not been able to speak to, so maybe giving them a phone call. So there's lots of different ways that we can show that we care for each other. We're going to review our last units learning now on Christianity, and the unit that we looked at that was caring for each other was the feeding of the 5,000. So I've got 3 questions for you now about the feeding of the 5,000, and I wonder how many of them you can remember. Question 1. Who had all the people come to see when the feeding of the 5,000 happened? Who had all the people come to see when the feeding of the 5,000 happened? And I think it's a good idea for you to stop, pause the video and make a note of these answers before we continue. Question 2. How many loaves of bread and fish did Jesus have to share? How many loaves of bread and fish did Jesus have to share? Pause, stop, write down your answer. What do we call this sharing of such little food to so many people? What do we call this sharing of such food to so many people? Is it an experiment, a miracle, or a party? Pause, stop, and write down your answer. Okay, these next questions are about last year's Judaism, and again we're thinking about caring for each other. And last year you looked at the festival of Tu B'Shavat, and Tu B'Shavat celebrates what? Does it celebrate the sun, teachers, or trees? Pause, stop, write down your answer. How is Tu B'Shavat celebrated? How is Tu B'Shavat celebrated? Last question. How old did Jewish people believe trees should be before their fruit is picked? How old did Jewish people believe that trees should be before fruit is picked? Let's go through the answers. So who had all the people come to see when the feeding of the 5,000 happened? They'd come to see Jesus. The answer to question 1 is Jesus. Question 2. The answer is 5 fish even and 2 loaves of bread. I have to excuse that error on my slide. It's 5 fish and 2 loaves of bread. What do we call this sharing of such little food to so many people? We call it a miracle. A miracle. 2b Shavat celebrates trees, and it is celebrated by planting trees and giving money to Israel so that they have money to plant trees. And last question. Jewish people believe that before fruit is picked from a tree, the tree should be 3 years old. Okay, I've got 4 words. Prayed, fault, thanked, forgiven. Prayed, fault, thanked, forgiven. Prayed. Prayed means that somebody has tried to address, which means speak to their God, the God that they believe in, and they have hoped and wished for something to happen. Prayed. Fault. Fault means that you or whoever is at fault is responsible for an accident or misfortune taking place. Fault. Thanked. Thanked means that you express gratitude and you show that you are pleased and happy that something has taken place. Thanked. Last word, forgiven. Forgiven. And forgiven is where somebody is no longer feeling angry and they no longer wish to punish you and they have forgiven you. So they are our key words for today's lesson. So let's think back to our story. Jonah was a good man most of the time, but he didn't want to pass on God's message. Why do you think that Jonah may have ignored God's request? Can you remember what he did instead of going to Nineveh? I'd like you to pause this video. Why do you think Jonah may have ignored God's request? I can imagine you had lots of ideas as to why Jonah may have ignored God's request. I'm thinking maybe he ignored it because it wasn't something he wanted to do and he wanted to do something different instead. You may have had other reasons why someone might not have wanted to travel and deliver a message. So what did he do instead of going to Nineveh? He went and got on the boat. Was the boat going to Nineveh? No, it wasn't, was it? So he wasn't going to do what God had asked and he decided to run away. And whilst on the boat, a storm hit and Jonah told the crew it was his fault for ignoring God. The rest of the crew didn't want to remove Jonah from the boat, but they felt they had no other option. Jonah jumped into the sea. Why do you think Jonah jumped off the boat? Why do you think Jonah jumped off the boat? Pause, reflect, and then resume. Again, fantastic ideas. Yeah, I agree. There are lots of reasons why Jonah might have jumped off the boat. One of them may have been that he wanted to save the other people, that he was regretting his decision to ignore God, that maybe God would forgive him or everyone else if he jumped into the water. The big fish. When in the sea, Jonah was eaten by a big fish. Gulp. Whilst in its belly, he had lots of time to think. What do you think he thought about? Have a pause, reflect, and then resume. I imagine he was probably thinking, well, this was a bit of a silly thing to do. Now I'm in a fish's stomach. Why did I ignore God? What made me think that that was going to be the right choice to make? But I can see that the storm has stopped. So maybe I did do the right thing as I've saved the other people. Why did I decide to make God angry? What can I do now? And what did he decide to do? he decided he would pray. And he prayed to God, and God forgave him. And the big fish burped, and Jonah flew out. How do you think he felt when he was back on land? What do you think he will do next? Pause, reflect, resume. Yeah, I think he was probably feeling very relieved when he was back on land and probably quite safe, maybe even wondering, where am I? So what does he decide to do next? Well, he upset God, didn't he? So maybe he needs to do what he was asked to do in the first place and deliver the message. And that's exactly what he did. He went to Nineveh to deliver God's message, and they were shocked at his message. But God also then forgave everybody in Nineveh. It's time for you to recreate the story. I want you to tell the story to a parent, a sibling, or even a cuddly toy. I don't mind who you tell the story to, as long as you've practiced it. Time to reenact the story. So your first task is to memorize and reenact the story so that you can tell it to a family member, a cuddly toy, a friend, maybe even a relative over a Zoom call or on the phone. So be ready to do big actions. I'm going to demonstrate what this might look like. You might have much better ideas than me. Let's find out. Jonah was mostly good. So most of the time he was quite a good person. He made good choices. However, one day God came and God said to him, I need you to deliver a message. But Jonah didn't do it, did he? Jonah decided that he would run away. He doesn't deliver the message. He runs away. He doesn't just run away though. He runs away and gets onto a boat. He's on the boat and there's a big storm. Oh, but it doesn't matter because Jonah is fast asleep. He's fast asleep and the storm is raging and crashing. The crew on the ship are not very happy. They wake him up and they say, Jonah, wake up, there's a big storm and the storm is crashing, the ship is moving. Jonah says, oh dear, I think this might be my fault. Oh, okay. At this point, Jonah's probably feeling a little bit uncomfortable. The crew say, no, don't worry, Jonah, we'll get rid of all the cargo, we'll throw everything off the ship and hopefully everything will be okay. But it's not, is it? And the boat continues to rock and shake and the storm is crashing and the rain is pounding and Jonah says, I'm going to have to jump off the boat. This is all my fault because I didn't do what God asked me to do. So Jonah, he jumps off the boat, but he's swallowed by a giant fish and he ends up going down and into the stomach of the big fish. And he sits there and he thinks, I deserve this. This is all my fault. I did the wrong thing. And he starts to worry and he starts to panic. And then he realizes he could pray to God. So he prays to God and he says, God, please save me. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry that I did wrong. Jonah. God hears Jonah and he says, Jonah, I forgive you. And he's forgiven. And at that point, the whale burps and Jonah goes flying out and he lands on the shore. And when he wakes up and he's on the beach, he thinks, I'm going to do the right thing. I'm going to deliver that message. And that's exactly what he does. For my attempt at the story, I can't wait to see how you decide to use your own actions. Remember, be loud, be proud, and show off your piece of drama. Okay, I'm going to model the second task to you. Basically what you need to do is you need to very quickly sketch out a picture of Jonah. That's not the most important part of this task that we're doing.
So I'm going to draw what I think Jonah looked like. You have to excuse my drawing. It doesn't have to be a brilliant picture, like I said. It's not supposed to be a work of art. I think he'd probably be quite sad, so I'm going to give him a little sad face. And some brown eyes. So this is my picture of Jonah inside the whale. Okay, so I've got Jonah inside the whale and he's not looking very happy. Okay, now I'm moving on to the main part of my task, which is to think about how do you think Jonah was feeling? I mean, you know what he's done, you know what's ended up happening to him. What happens at this point? So we know that he's been eaten by a whale. He's sitting in the stomach and he's thinking about the choices that he's made. Now, why did the storm happen? Well, the storm happened because, unfortunately, Jonah didn't follow God's request, which was to go and give that message. So I think he's going to be feeling probably a little bit sad, praying that he's going to survive because he's currently inside a whale, and asking God for forgiveness. So I think Jonah felt scared. Okay, so what does he do? I think he felt scared. I believe he would have been worrying, full stop. So what does he do? Well, he prays, doesn't he? Jonah wanted forgiveness from God, so he prayed. He prayed to God and he hoped, praying would save him. Okay, so what do you think Jonah was thinking? I think Jonah felt scared. I believe he would have been worrying. Jonah wanted forgiveness from God, so he prayed. He hoped praying would save him. What do you think Jonah was thinking? Did you think he felt bad that he'd not done as he was asked? Do you think that he wished he'd done something different? I want you to have a think about what you think Jonah would have been thinking about while he was inside the big fish. And then complete the task and upload it onto Seesaw.